Konnichiwa, the Hong Cricket Pod Yokoso, the final Japan Cricket podcast where I, Alan Kerr, will be your official host.
I'm very honoured to be taking the position and leader of the Japan Cricket podcast.
Konnichiwa, the Hong Cricket Pod Yokoso. Welcome to the Japan Cricket podcast, the final Japan Cricket podcast where I, Alan Kerr, will be your official host. For those watching for the first time on YouTube, you will already have clocked that the tremendously handsome Reo Sakurano Thomas is going to take over as the official host of the Japan Cricket podcast. Reo, how do you feel about that?
Oh, thank you. I think it's my third time being on this podcast now. So I've been a follower of this podcast for a few years now. So yeah, very honoured to be taking the position and leader of the Japan Cricket podcast.
Yeah, I won't be retiring permanently. I might just pop in from time to time to make sure that Reo is still, maintaining the overall high standards that have been set. And don't worry, I'm not retiring because I'm going anywhere or about to drop dead, despite the way I sound at present. We are trialing some new software for those watching. You might be able to figure out we've got some funky backgrounds going on, which means my hand keeps disappearing on my screen, which is a bit weird, and part of my head keeps disappearing. But I think we'll have a bit of fun with those certain bits and pieces. So those watching on the YouTube channel can have a whole different experience. Reo, we've got a lot to talk about. The cricket season has begun. I don't think we're going to spend too much time going over what's happened so far, but there have been a few bits and pieces of note. Round one of the Japan Cricket League started 2-3 weeks ago now. But we also had the JCL T10.
Sure, yeah.
Which moved to the start of the season from July. You were one of the players who struggled somewhat in its first year. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I still remember it was like the middle of July last year, and our Sano team had 3 games in one day where it was like 37 degrees. And after the second game, I was done. I don't even think I played the third game. I was just losing control. But it definitely was a good idea to have a competition like the JCL T10. So there definitely was a place for it. And yeah, it was a great idea, moving it almost as like a pre-season kind of thing for the JCL 40 over season. So yeah, it was good. It was only like 3 or 4 weekends, but a lot of teams played, and yeah, we had Tigers who won everything last year winning again. So good start to them again for the start of the season.
Yeah, it was just 5 match days this year. We had 4 groups of 3 originally, but we lost a couple of teams just before the start. So Group 1, Tigers played the Wyverns and won 3 out of 3. Men in Blue played the Tokyo Star Kings. And Men in Blue, last year's champions, also won 3 out of 3. KKR wins the group with Rising Stars and Tokyo Titans. And KKR got through their group, whilst the Falcons got past your guys, Sano Cricket Club, and Chiba Sharks, who came bottom of Group 4. So then we went into semi-finals. That was all just one day, a big grand finals day, which was pretty good, actually. I thought the way that round. And it ended up being the Tigers against the Men in Blue in the final, with the Tigers getting home as they often do. Familiar names performing. Sabarish Ravichandran seemed to be the one who took up the early season form. The final was a bit of a damn squib, really. The Tigers scored 140 for 4 in their 10 overs, with Salah making 86 not out in 31 deliveries, which was the highest score of the season. Whilst Men in Blue struggled really from ball 1 and were restricted to just 58, with Sanath Acharya taking 4 wickets for just 2 runs, which I think is the best figures in the T10. So 2 seasons in, and the T10 is already establishing itself. I think that's probably where it's going to stay, isn't it?
It's definitely a good pre-season thing to have. Short formats. People are still rusty from the long winter of Japan, and yeah, I was speaking to Sabo at the start of the season, and he was pretty worried about who his team was going to go because his long-lost spin brother Piyush has moved overseas now. But I think as long as Sabo is going to be, Tigers are always going to be a top contender for any competition in Japan, I think.
You may not know this, but Piyush played his first game in Washington
I saw that
on the weekend.
Yeah,
he took
yeah.
7 for 20 in a T20 game.
Saw he took a photo with Pakistan fast bowling Mohammad Asif.
One of his teammates.
No idea he was living over there as well. But yeah, good for Piyush.
Yeah. So the T10, I mean, from a playing perspective, I'm curious about how you feel it differs from the other formats you play, and also how you think it can benefit Japan.
Yeah. Obviously, coming from New Zealand, grew up watching the longer formats and practicing the longer formats. Even for me coming over here and it being a very T20 focus based, competitions that we're doing here, it's kind of took me off guard because that's not my usual play style, but that's the way the game's going towards, and that's where all the money is in cricket, and that's the target that our women's team, our men's national teams are playing right now. So it's definitely beneficial to be playing all these shorter formats within Japan cricket if we're going to get better and better in the long run. So yeah, playing a format like T10 is only going to, playing these short formats is only going to benefit within, leveling up our domestic leagues. So yeah, I think there's a place for it for sure.
Yeah, I think we'll probably come back to that towards the end of this episode. We might talk briefly about how the national teams went earlier in the year, and probably some synergies there that might link in. So the T10 done and dusted, short and sharp. It was all done by the 7th of April. Sometimes the cricket season even started by the 7th of April, so to have had a first trophy lifted by that stage was definitely a first. But the 40 over league has begun, and there was no surprise to regular followers of Japan cricket that Chiba Sharks captain Mr. Dougal Bedingfield made a 134 in round one, his fifth 100 in round one games over the last 8 years, with 2 half centuries in there as well. A few clubs that have done some shopping over the off season, a few players moving around. Division 1, I guess we should probably just give a bit of a summary. Division 1 has 11 teams this year.
Yep.
So Paddy Foley's dropped out.
2 teams.
Tokyo Rangers have dropped out, and KKR have come up. So 11 teams in Division 1, 9 teams in Divisions 2 and 3. And for the first time, there is a Division 4, which has 6 teams in it. So, yeah, a lot of cricket to be played across those 4 divisions. Tokyo Falcons made a good start and won both their games. The Sharks, as we mentioned, they've brought in Nikhil Pol, so it's pretty handy signing, and Benito Davis has also come in. And you were probably involved in the game of the round, weren't you, in round 2, Rail? As the Sharks and Sano fought it out at the SICG. You want to tell us a little bit about that game?
Yeah, I mean, after our very disappointing loss last weekend, being bowled out for 120, we had to come back. And after we lost the toss and Chiba Dougal picked the bat first, it seemed like a great decision because they were off to a flyer, and it looked like Dougal was going to go back-to-back centuries for sure. But we definitely came back with our bowling in the middle to end 20 overs, and realistically, the Chiba Sharks should have scored somewhere between 280, 300 the way they were going. So it was really great to hold them back to a score of 235, I think. And then,
235 from 9. So you guys picked up a few wickets towards the back end of that. Taniyama, 45.
He's bowled beautifully.
Shelton picked up a couple as well, actually. 2 for 29 from his 8. Probably the pick of the bowlers there.
That game was definitely spin to win, I think, because both our spinners, Tani and Shotaro, and their spinners, Ben and Ash, were definitely by far the best bowlers of the day. So, yeah, it was really, after only scoring 120, I was feeling like, they probably feel like they should have got more, but we probably feel like, are we going to chase that score? But luckily our top 3 batters got off to a flyer. But it was still a little bit. I was on the edge of my seat to the end because when me both me and Taniyama got out still leaving about 50, 60 runs or so. It was far from being over, but we got there in the end. 4 balls remaining in the game. But yeah, definitely a tight, pretty full of intense game to be.
Yeah, it was 6 metres off the last, and Shotono Hiratsuka whacked a couple of boundaries off Nikhil Pol to get you guys home. So first win of the season. Out of interest, Ro, what's it like bowling to your national team coach? do you get a bit of chirp? Do you get into his ear, or do you figure that he's long in the tooth enough not to get put off by the chat that you've got?
I think always, you always mark. We do as Sano always mark playing the Sharks is one of our big games because there's lots of rival friendlies going over there, and playing coach and fellow national team teammates and fellow JCA staff. It's a bit of a fun game to be a part of. So I just like to treat any batsman as the same. I don't try to let personal feelings or attachments get involved. But he's definitely been the top batter by far this competition. So it was great getting him out, even though he made 70 odd.
Did you have a word with him after the game and say, "Hey, coach, did you notice Did you notice I just made 80 and perhaps you can back me up the order a bit?
No, I don't like to talk too much. I just try to let my play do the talking. So we'll see how that goes. But apart from that game, it looks like the Falcons are definitely the pick of the team so far. They've added some big bats over the off season, but it's been their bowling that's actually won them both games by massive. They bowled us out for 120, and then I think they just bowled out the Wyverns for 100. So 2 big bonus point wins is setting them apart from the rest of the pack so far.
Yeah, very much so. And looking at that, they've traditionally been a team that actually their bowling struggles. So it looks like there's been some smart recruitment from the Falcons. Yeah, elsewhere, Kawasaki Knight Riders have had an interesting start as well. So trying to chase whatever it was, 280 against the Sharks in that first game, and they only fell about 10 or 12 runs short.
They could have easily been 2 from 2 early on. So
or also none from none.
None from none.
After the Rising Stars are going to bowl them all out for 90 something, and then KKR returned to bowl the Rising Stars out for 50 or 60. Extraordinary game. Obviously on a difficult wicket down on Sano 2 or wherever it was. But 96 all out, plays 67 all out. The whole game only lasted 48, 49 overs. So interesting stuff going on in the JCL. And we're not going to see a lot of JCL at this ground, at the SICG this year. We're going to be moving the JCL T20. Is largely going to be played up here across Saturdays from June onwards. But the reason that it's from June onwards is because we've got quite a lot of stuff coming up. So why don't you tell us about what's happening this weekend, first of all?
Yeah, May is always the most exciting time in Japan cricket because we have 4 weekends full of different competitions, starting off this weekend with the Futures League. That is our domestic under-23 competition, also acts as our under-19 trials. Lots of exciting names that we already know and new faces that we don't coming along this year.
Yeah, I think it's worth talking about how that competition's grown. This is the 3rd year we're going to do it. When we did it the first time round, I think we really struggled just to get 44 players for 4 teams. I think we ended up with like 48 players, so every team had just 12. We had some really young kids playing in that first year. But now, as we get to year 3, everyone kind of knows what it is and wants to be a part of it, which is really, really encouraging. And this year we had 110 applications.
Yeah.
Which is mad. So I had to disappoint a few people, which I guess is good. But I think long term, I know you and I have chatted about this a little bit already. I think the goal would be to have, under 23 Futures League and a under 19s Futures League and maybe an under 15s Futures League. Perhaps that's something we can work towards in the future. 4 teams: Turtles, Dragons, Vipers, and Gorillas will be taking each other on. All the SICG 1 games will be on the live stream on the YouTube channel. Plenty of names, as you mentioned, guys like the Yamamoto Lake brothers, Koji Hargrave Abe, the Hiratsuka brothers, plenty of others besides taking part in that. And of course, you played in the first year and you coached last year and coaching again this year.
Yeah, third year with the Vipers. First year wooden spoon. Last year wooden spoon. So who knows? Third year lucky.
Things can only look up. So yeah, we got that. And then, of course, the weekend after is the Japan Premier League. So that's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the 3rd, 4th, 5th of May. Looking forward to that.
Again, yeah, for that, just like the Futures League, we've got more and more players, more and more high-quality players coming over with our old, names that we already know for the Japan national team, but some, new faces and some people that we don't know much about, which is exciting to see.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be possibly, they speculate, but possibly the last year that the Japan Premier League will be held in the format that it currently is. There is some discussions about perhaps moving away from sort of the regional pathway model and into more of a sort of franchise model where there's perhaps a bit of player auctions or something like that. So we'll see how that develops, but there is definitely a desire for these tournaments to grow and develop and evolve into something a bit different. So hopefully it can become.
Just got to hope for some good weather. The last two JPLs have been affected by weather both days, so we just got to fingers crossed for the weather gods to hold up for that weekend. The whole of May, actually. Yeah.
I was going to mention that. The forecast looks okay for this weekend. I'll check that far ahead. But yeah, the JPL all streamed on the YouTube channel again, just the games on the SICG1. And then beyond that, the Mongolians are coming.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about facing the Mongols?
Yeah, I mean, it's an unknown team. We don't know much about them. We know that they're not going to be a super strong team, but it's a chance for us to play more games together and play international games here since the end of 22 for the qualifiers then.
Yeah.
So hopefully attract new fans and people coming to watch our games for, I think it's 7 games. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a 7-match series starting on May the 7th and running through to May the 12th. Particularly on the 11th and the 12th, the Saturday and Sunday. There's 2 games on the Saturday and a game on the Sunday morning. And I think those are the days that we really want to encourage people to come down to the SICG, support the team, get behind them, bring your family, friends, and make a day of it. Because watching cricket in Japan is a treat. And the SICG when the sun's out, it's a fantastic place to spend some time. So all of those games will be live streamed, and hopefully we'll have a good crowd in as well. So I think it's 1 match on the Tuesday the 7th, 2 on the Wednesday the 8th, 1 on Thursday the 9th, and Friday is a rest day, and those games on the weekend that we just mentioned. So you've just been named in that squad.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, it's the first time playing at home in that's part of 15, 16 months. So a rare opportunity to see the Japan men's team. And of course, as we look ahead to the year, you guys have got the sub-regional qualifier again, back end of the year in Korea.
Yeah. So
towards.
Good training matches for those games coming later in the year.
Yeah. And then straight after that, from the 14th of May, we have the Women's Japan Premier League. So that's where we're wrapping up. Again, something that's moved from the heat of the summer when it was held last year. And the poor girls were battling, I think, in some of the temperatures that they had to deal with. But that's moved to May. And we've got a whole host of players coming from overseas. We've got 10 players this year coming from overseas. So it'll be a 5-match T10 series played on the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, with a T20 a day on Saturdays, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we'll finish on the 19th. We've got a couple of international schools bringing a whole heap of people to learn, which is going to be really exciting. And opportunities to have a go, meet the players, and really just try and engage with some more female cricketers around Japan. So, yeah, the Women's JPL is one that we're really excited about. Second year running it, it's going to, like the other competitions we've already mentioned, it's just going to grow and grow, I hope. So, and again, you're going to be coaching in that.
Yeah, I mean, last year, just watching it, it was a great initiative to have a competition like that. So, yeah, just growing from what we did last year, hopefully getting a great tournament with, plenty of people coming from all around the EAP region. So it's going to be a great competition, I think, this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So that wraps up the domestic scene. So you're involved in all of those. So coaching the first, playing the next two, and then coaching in the third. So yeah, it all starts on the 27th of April and it doesn't finish until the 19th of May. Cricket non-stop. And the first guys just started arriving today. We've had Skylar Cook, we've had Kaz Kato-Stafford all come into the ground this morning. The Yamamoto Lake boys been knocking around for a couple of weeks already. So it starts to feel like the season's really kicking off. Now, you mentioned the sub-regional later in the year, and I guess it's an opportunity just quickly to look back on what's already been a pretty full calendar for Japan. And the JCA newsletter went out last week. It was just remarkable to think of all the things that have happened since we packed up for Christmas. We've announced Mizuno as our national clothing sponsor. We've announced our permanent membership into the Asian Cricket Council, re-entry into the Japan Olympic Committee. Lots going on. And then, of course, the men's team went across to Thailand and Hong Kong, and the women's team went to Malaysia.
Yeah.
So lots going on. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the Thailand tournament? That was the ACC Challenger Cup.
That was the Challenger Cup.
We needed to finish in the top two.
We did.
To qualify through for the Premier Cup, which unfortunately just fell short. So we got victories in that tournament against the hosts, Thailand, and against the Maldives, but fell short against the teams from Singapore and Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia very, very strong. A couple of tricky games against Singapore, shall we say.
Absolutely. It was great facilities in Thailand. It was the first time for most of us that had never been and played it there before. It was hot, but nice facilities. And like you said, we started off really well playing our first two games. And it was a bittersweet whole tour because we were playing really good cricket, probably the best cricket we've ever played and more consistent. But there was a few things that we didn't get quite right in a few of the games, and we couldn't get over the hump with some of these games, there were games where we were right in it till the very end or stuff like that. So disappointed. Obviously, we beat all the teams that were ranked below us, but we weren't able to beat any of the teams ranked above us, and we definitely should have come away from the whole tour with one or two of those games, especially that one against Singapore, and then probably one later on after the ACC tournament, when we played Hong Kong in the East Asia Cup. Yeah. So good and bad, but getting better.
I think from a point of view of watching from the sidelines in Thailand and then watching on the stream when you guys were in Hong Kong, there does still feel like it's just a growing phase for the team. There's still a lot of young boys in the team. You're 24, so as a group, the maturing is still literally happening in front of our eyes. And I think that game you mentioned against Singapore will haunt us all forever. I think it was a tough day, tough watch.
It wasn't even the fact that we lost them, but we fell a few runs short for us to be put first in the pool to play the weaker team in the other pool. That was all.
So that was that game. We missed by like 3 runs. Then obviously the third, fourth place playoff where we made 2-10 or something and couldn't defend it. I think part of it is just you have to go through those experiences to come out the other side. So if we're in similar positions again, I think we'll know how to handle it a bit better. But you mentioned the East Asia Cup, went off to Hong Kong straight afterwards. We've spent plenty of time over there over the years, but I guess your first visit?
Yeah, it was my first. Yeah.
Playing at the Mission Road, and I haven't shown you actually, but the certificates arrived today from Guinness. So we have 2 world record holders in the Japan men's national team. Our opening batters, Kendall Kanawaki Fleming and Lockie Yamamoto Lake, who hit 258 in their opening partnership against China in our first game of that tournament. Just on that, you were sat in the tent watching that.
Yeah.
What was it like? Just doskoying like crazy again?
Yeah, that was the first thing I was going to say. I've never said so many doskoys in my life. No, it was an incredible piece of hitting. Especially, I think it was like the first or second over Lockie got dropped on not many, and then after that, it was just no looking back, boundary after boundary. Quite small boundaries straight at the Hong Kong ground, but the boys just took care of the Chinese bowlers that day, and yeah, Kendall was about to come off at one stage because he had hurt back, and we were all just yelling, "No, stay on, stay on! We need about 10 more runs for the world record." And yeah, great that we have Guinness World Records for something like that now.
I claim a bit of credit for this record because just as the boys got to about 200, I was sat in the tea room watching it, and I started looking up what the record was. And I got on to the manager, Adam, and said, "I don't want to jinx anything, so you might not want to let anyone know, but the record's 230 or something for the highest ever partnership." And when Kendall was trying to come off, it was 2 runs. It was literally 1 run behind, so he needed 2 more runs to leapfrog. After I saw him walking off, I was like, Adam, have a word. So yeah, in fact, he went back out and added an extra 20-odd runs to the record. I like to think I got a bit of credit for that. And then, we've just seen the ACC Premier Cup has just wound up this week, which was won by the UAE. But, Hong Kong have finished third in that tournament. They've beaten Nepal in the third place playoff. So for us to have gone toe-to-toe with them 3 times, on other days, those at least 1 or 2 of those games could have gone our way. So I think we showed a lot of credit and a lot of development in that tournament, even if the results haven't quite shown it yet. I think the other thing I did just want to mention is, you took a 6-for against Thailand, didn't you? But then you finished the tournament in Hong Kong with a broken thumb. Is that right?
Yeah. I still remember that game quite clearly, actually, because I think we scored about 170 against Thailand in our first game. We were feeling pretty confident. And then I was bowling the first over and got hit for 15 or so. And then the second and third over went for like 30 or so. So they were like 40 after 3 overs. 45 after and we were like, because we didn't really know anything about Thailand's batting, or we saw some clips, but we're like, oh, okay, these people are here to play and they're not backing down. But I think I was brought back in the 5th or 6th over. It was one of the most bizarre overs because I think I took 3 wickets, but there was also 3 boundaries in that over. So, yeah, it was probably the worst ever 5-for I've ever taken in my life, and I haven't taken that many. But I was just thankful I could get the boy help contribute to that win, and somehow it's the best figures that T20 figures that's been taken for Japan. But yeah, I have to get a better 5-for, so that one doesn't remain the best 5-for in Japan. But yeah, just following that, the last game in Hong Kong, it was the final, us against Hong Kong, and it was the first over where the batter, I bowled and the batter just middled it straight back to me. It just hit me on the end of the thumb, and straight away it just blew up. But I just managed to play on. Obviously, it was just pumped full of adrenaline, so I wasn't feeling it at the time. But as soon as I think I bowled my 4th over, went off straight away in like the 18th over, and it just blew up like a tennis ball. And I've never been in that much pain, but I thought it was going to be all right. And it was also in the second innings we were batting, so it was coming up to, I was slotted in the 8th position, but I was like, dude, I don't even know if I can get the hand in my glove. And he's like, okay, we'll just slide you down to 11. And I think Ryan, who came in at 10, there was still 2 overs to go, so I was ready. I was going to bat. I don't know how I got my hand in my glove. I was probably just going to go out there trying a few lap shots because any shot I was going to try to play straight was not going to be any good. But lucky it was like off season in Japan, so I wasn't doing much as soon as I came back. I just had to rest it for 5-6 weeks. So yeah, nothing serious, but a few wounds by the end of the tour. That was a really long tour, actually, almost 3 weeks away.
Yeah, it was a long tour, and it was a long, a lot of different players used, and debuts for 3 of the young chaps. Kaz Stafford making his debut, and Charlie Hinds and Koji Hargrave Abe all coming into the team. So what do you make of those young boys?
They were obvious. Those three boys were one of all the stars for the under-19. Great leadership they showed on all the tours, making it through the qualifiers in Darwin, and then making it to the Asia Cup in Dubai at the end of the last year. So they definitely deserved their position as a part of the men's team, and I'm sure they're going to be long stayers in this team, and they'll be here playing again in a couple of weeks' time. So yeah, just great additions to the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And lastly, on the international stuff, the women went across to Malaysia for the ACC Premier Cup. It was a 16-team tournament. Yeah. The girls knocked over both Oman and China, who were ranked higher than them, in pleasing wins, before falling to UAE, who were the other team in the group, who went on to win the tournament. But that was enough to get them into the quarterfinals, where they just lost out by 16 runs, I think, to Malaysia, who went on to make the final as well. So beaten by the two best teams in the tournament. But perhaps the event will be best remembered for Hilya Chandal taking 4 wickets and 4 balls against China, which we were watching on the bus on the way back from the game.
It was hard to keep following of that tournament, because that game against Malaysia was the same day we were playing the semi-final. And I think one of the games was an off day for us, so we all watched it together in one of the conference rooms in the hotel. And then, it was after one of our games, we were going back home from the bus and watching that live. So by far probably the best tour that the girls have had in recent times. So that's good signs.
Yeah, definitely good signs there. I think those players are starting to come together. Get a lot of youth in that team as well. But the more they play together, the more they get exposure to those sorts of teams, particularly outside of the EAP region. There's just so many teams that are all so different. So just being exposed to that, I think, will help them develop nicely. So, yeah, lots to look forward to. They've got an East Asia Cup round, so straight after you guys play in Korea, the girls travel out the following week. So lots happening this year. But generally, once we get through this busy period, it's all going to be about Japan domestic cricket. Well, after the Mongolia series, it's all domestic cricket from here through to late September. So lots to look forward to in a season that you're excited about, Ray. I know come October, November, you can get cooked. But you got Mojo back for the start of the year?
Yeah, that's the great thing about cricket. By the end of the season, you're just hating cricket and wanting it to be over, getting into the off season. But by March, April, you're so excited for the season to start back up. So yeah, another full season of cricket, lots of exciting tournaments and games to be a part of. Obviously, the hope is to be doing these podcasts on a regular basis, rounding up these games weekly, talking about these tournaments and highlight scores and figures of the week and stuff like that. So, yeah, hopefully you'll be seeing my face a lot more with some new and old guests that you've had on previously.
Yeah, and I think people shouldn't be shy about sharing their comments and giving some input into what they want to hear, what they want you to talk about, because I think we're doing this for the cricket community, right? That's why it exists. So I think moving to YouTube hopefully will bring a new audience. There's a lot of people who do follow us, so hello and thanks for coming in to watch. If you want to look back to the old episodes, you'll just have to go to wherever you get your podcasts, onto whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts. The Japan Cricket Podcast is there. Lots of old stuff, mainly interviews, but a few bits of historical content as well. But looking ahead, I think educating people on what the Japan domestic scene looks like, giving credit to those who are doing well, but also doing particular features around our international teams when they are in action is probably the future of the pod. And I'm excited to see how it develops over the coming seasons, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to taking over and doing my best from where you left off. And yeah, I'm sure you'll be a regular guest. Hopefully you will. But yeah, exciting stuff ahead for the podcast, the YouTube channel, all of it. Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on, mate.
All good. Yeah. I'll try my best. Sweet as.